what is my spouse feeling at this moment that makes them feel this way? It's so much harder than it sounds. We want to see the person from the inside. We don't want to see just the symptoms. Me and you are together. This is the problem. This is how I'm feeling. This is my inner world. Let's look at it together. My name's Bianca Benisti. I run the Instagram account called Rita Inspired. And it all really started off through challenges that I went through in my life that I decided to share with others. It's purely vulnerable and from a place of my heart and my connection with Hashem, where I saw that light took my pain and transformed it into a part of who I am and what I can give to the world. And that's when I realized that everyone has that in their life in some sort of their own language. And I wanted to just share that. I wanted them to feel that beauty that I felt from the Torah and my new connection, my new language with Hashem. And I think oftentimes that language gets lost in these like laws and do's and don'ts. And I felt I was introduced to something much bigger than that. And that's what I want to share. So everything I say really purely comes from either something I've experienced and felt myself or that I'm currently working on myself. And it's, it grew into a really beautiful community. And I keep meeting so many new accounts and profiles and whether it's individuals or organizations like this one, where we're able to do that mission together. So it's been really fulfilling. So I think when it comes to marriage and relationships in general, listening is a huge factor. And I tend to think of it in the way of we should look at the whys and not the whats. And the difference between the two is that when we look at the what about somebody, we're looking at their behaviors. We're looking at the face value. But the problem is the whats are only the symptoms to the problem. And in a marriage specifically, and in all relationships, but even more so in the vulnerability of a marriage, we don't want to see the symptoms. We want to know the source of the symptoms and we want to enter that person's inner world. And that's where the whys come in. Why is that person behaving that sense? Why is this behavior exposing itself? What is this behavior trying to tell me? So we want to shift from what to why. A classic example, there are so many, but a classic example could be you've had the longest day, you're counting down till your spouse comes home, and finally they walk in and they just plop themselves on the couch, legs up, and you're like, are you kidding me? Like, why do you get to check out and not me? Which is totally a normal feeling and frustration to have. But if you take a moment before voicing that and say, okay, that's the what. The what is the behavior. Yes, he's plopping himself on the couch, has no worry in the world and is checking out. But why? Ask yourself the whys. What kind of day did my husband have that he feels the need to be that way? Why is my husband's behavior exposing itself in that way? But when your communication is springing off the foundation of, wait, I took a moment to understand what you're feeling and what it's like to be you right now, then your spouse will feel that. And then you could still voice and get that validation and say that frustration and get the help you need. But we want to look at the whys and not the whats. We want to see the person from the inside. We don't want to see just the symptoms. So it could be very tricky when someone comes in with a specific mood or, a long day and something that you also weren't a part of. So you don't even know the background of what it is. And they may not be in a place that they want to share it. I think the best way is to slowly ask that person, how could I be of help to you? If you need your space right now, it's no problem, but just in their own language, communicating to them that I'm here. And whatever I'm here means to you, I'm here. If that means that you need to go take a drive alone, I'm still here and I'm waiting. And if that means that you need me to come with you or you want to talk to me, everyone has their own way. Some people need to zone out. Some people need to be together. Some people need to voice it. But I just want you to know that whatever language you need right now, I want to be a part of it. And I know it may feel hard and it may feel like you're, blocked up with it, but I want to be a part of it. And I think oftentimes that even someone who struggles with letting that person in or kind of gets that blockage when they're in a certain mood, just hearing that someone is there, they may not show it externally, but it really does soften up their feelings and their mood. And it gives them the space to know that when they are ready to share, that person is there. I think that's the most that you can do in that moment is just letting them know that whatever language you need, I want to be there. I don't want to give you my language, my love language. I want to give you what your love language is. And if that's time alone, just tell me where I can be of help that I actually charge your battery versus drain your battery. So an important part about listening is understanding that listening is not just hearing the words, it's hearing the emotions behind the behavior. But most importantly, it's a form of validation. In its simplest form, it's validating that person. It's telling that person that I see your inner world. I see your version of reality, and I want to understand it. I want to come in and see it from your lens. And oftentimes I tell myself that I'm giving my spouse a chance for connecting with me, to connect to his inner world. I'm giving my spouse a chance for his reality to exist. My definition of reality is not necessarily everyone's reality. My experience is not necessarily reality. And I want to understand what lens of reality my spouse is looking at. And I think that when we look at it in that sense, the listening becomes not just I'm hearing the words out of my spouse, but it's becoming I want to bond to what makes you you. I want to bond with what you're feeling right now in this moment. And understanding that that could be different from how we would react in that moment. Understanding that the way that they feel in that moment may be different than how you would have reacted, because maybe that's important to them and that's less important to you, and vice versa. We're all made up of different qualities and different triggers. So when we take a moment to say, wait, my reality is not everyone's reality, even more so for my spouse, then we're able to understand and validate those feelings when we're listening, not just listening and saying, okay, like, cool, I hear you. It's like, no, I don't just hear you. Like, yeah, it may be different for me, but like, I really see your inner world. And that's the biggest form of validation you can give a spouse, is that they feel understood. There's a crazy study that tells us that a person actually waits 7 to 17 seconds before they interject their own opinion when they're listening to someone. So that tells us something pretty big, is that actually fully listening to someone and giving undivided attention is not such a given gift to everyone. And it's normal. We shouldn't feel like, oh, so then I have a flaw. It's not a flaw. It's totally normal. The average person just wants to give their opinion, and it's coming from a good place. A lot of the times it's coming from a place like, I just want to help. But oftentimes someone just needs that space of just listening. So how do we do that? One of my mentors actually gave a really beautiful exercise, especially when things are getting heated. But even when not, you and your spouse both sit, and one person is designated as the talker and one person is designated as the listener. Now, the listener has one job and one job only. It's just to listen. But it's so much harder than it sounds, because it's while the talker is talking, it's not to think of what advice you want to give them, why you're right, or your opinion, or a time that it happened to you. It's nothing. It's purely just, what is my spouse feeling at this moment that makes them feel this way? And that's really hard. And it takes a lot of refocusing, and your mind might wander off, and it's fine. But if your focus is constantly like, no, go back to being the listener, that person will feel heard. And then you switch seats and the talker becomes a listener, and vice versa. And why this exercise tends to work a lot is because a lot of the times why arguments or some heated moments come up is because someone doesn't feel heard, someone doesn't feel understood. And in this sense, everyone knows that they're getting their slot of time where I know it's undivided attention. This person is not thinking of what to reply, and this person is just listening to what makes me feel like me. And even if what I'm saying makes zero sense, I just want them to know that it's how I'm feeling. A feeling sometimes is just a feeling, and it may not make sense, and it may not, but that little time where you are the talker, you don't necessarily have to make sense. It's an emotion, and a lot of our emotions don't make sense. They don't work with our mind. It's our heart. So that's why a lot of the times it tends to work. And another reason why this exercise tends to work is because it removes you from the me versus you. It becomes, let's sit, let's talk. I want to know you, and me and you are together. And even when this exercise is done, I even found with my husband, myself, sometimes we do need extra guidance. We still need that extra mentor. But when we go to that mentor and we've done this exercise, we're going together as teammates. We're going together as like, he heard me out. He gets me. We still don't know what to do, but he gets me and I get him. And I think that that's a very big, strong foundation and a layer that you're springing off to now start looking for the solutions, because you've let those emotions breathe. You've let those emotions have a place to exist. And now the solution could come into place. Another important, really beautiful exercise of that is actually the I statement. And he says that if there's one place in your marriage that you should put yourself first, it's this one. And it's the I statement versus the you statement. What's the difference between the two? A you statement is starting off by saying, you hurt me, you were late, you made me mad. When we start off with you, a lot of the times it will trigger in our partner, oh, I messed up again. Okay, so where did I go wrong? Let the criticism come in. And it right away starts it off on a me versus you. So when we want to transition to the me and you versus the problem, we say I, and it says, and you're still getting to express your feelings in the same manner, but you're saying, I feel hurt. I feel sad. I'm mad. And that transitions from the light being put onto your partner, and the light goes back onto you and saying, hey, this is my inner world and I want you to come see it with me. And I think that exercise a lot of the times, and I really, once I was actually read this and realized a lot of the times my mind would first resort to you. Why would you do that? And then I realized, whoa, it's a very big game changer to switch to I, because essentially that's what you are doing is switching from the me versus you to me and you versus the problem. This is the problem. This is how I'm feeling. This is my inner world. Let's look at it together. A lot of the times we don't realize that the issue itself isn't always what's bothering us. A lot of the times it's more the pain that the issue caused. So we may have fights about whether it's an in-law or a job, or it could be anything. And a lot of the times we're always focused a lot of the times on the actual problem, but this is what's happening. Let's fix this. And totally, I'm all for finding solutions. But a lot of times we don't realize that what's really the underlying issue is it's not that you were late. It's that I felt abandoned. I felt not cared for. Whereas we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have flaws. We're all learning our spouse's language. You're not walking into marriage, no matter if you're the best communicator in the world, everyone has their own individual way of communicating their own love language, their own language. So you're not coming in as a pro, no matter what marriage advice you have in your life, you're learning your husband and your wife, and every marriage is its own individual world. So that being said, if you know there's going to be mess ups, we have to understand that it's not always the problem. It's really the pain. And when we start realizing that, then on both sides, when you're the one being hurt, you're able to say, hey, I don't mind that you were late. It's more that I really just felt like, does he not care to be with me? Or is it not a priority? And then he realizes, oh, that's what you're feeling bad about. No, of course, I was just running late. And we could clear up a lot of the issues when we realize that it's usually the pain versus the actual problem. And then when that happens, that's where the me versus you, it's less of you hurt me. It's more of I feel hurt because of this and this and this. And then it becomes, okay, wait, it's me and you versus the problem. I don't want you to ever feel like you were abandoned or not important for me. Something that I like to tell myself oftentimes is, in this moment right now, I have the choice to choose connection or disconnection, because at the end of the day, it's always a choice. It's a hard choice. And sometimes it feels like, am I putting myself to the side to make that choice? But it is a choice. And when you tell yourself, I'm going to choose connection versus disconnection, you are deciding to bring your partner closer. And I tell myself one line: remember, you cannot change the other person, but you can change the way you respond to them. And the beautiful part about that is when you do that, you enable an environment, you create an environment that could actually allow them to change. So instead of focusing on how can I change them? How can I make them better? They have this flaw and they have that flaw. And it could be coming from such a beautiful place where, you want to help your partner improve. We're all there for that. But you cannot change them. What you could do is change the environment for them through being yourself. When you radiate your best self, you're making an environment that your partner can also radiate his best self. So I often tell myself, where can I make a little change now to create a better environment for both of us to shine brighter? Yes. So I think that at the end of the day, anything that is worthwhile will have work, and anything that we've worked for has meaning to us. A marriage is two different worlds coming together, and we are trying to get to know that other person. So it will take work, but it's so worthwhile because you're letting someone into your world and to parts that most people don't even know about. And as much as it's hard work, and sometimes we may feel like, oh, I'm doing all the heavy lifting and why doesn't that person change? I think that once we focus, we constantly go back to the focus of like, where can I change? Where can I make the climate of my relationship a little bit better? And sometimes it feels annoying and it feels pressuring, like it shouldn't be all on me. But when you make that small, tiny change, your spouse feels that change and then reacts to that change. And then you react to his change, and it changes the whole trajectory of the relationship. So I think that it's hard work. Yes, a marriage is hard work, but we don't need to have an all or nothing. It's a journey together. It's an example of like pulling back an arrow. And when you're pulling it back, it looks like you're going so far. But when you let go, that arrow springs forward. And I think a lot of the times our marriage will be filled with highs and with lows and with middles. And when we're in that lower moment, we have to look at it as like, okay, we're being pulled back, because when we get out of this, we're going to be much stronger together. We're going to get to know each other at a low point. And the truth is, you really get to know a marriage the most at its hardest times. We don't ask for the hardest times, but when we're in them and we come out of them, we realize like, whoa, he just got to see a part of me that like was so vulnerable and I couldn't control it because of the circumstances around me. And I got to see a part of him, and we got to support each other in this hard time. So I think we have to look at the hard work as a bonding experience. And it's really all a mindset, because when we see it as a bonding experience, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's still heavy. But if you're carrying a bag of diamonds, you know it's a bag of diamonds. It's still heavy, but you're going to carry them because you know the value of what you're holding. But if you're carrying a bunch of coals, it just feels useless. So you want to make sure that you know what you're carrying, and you know that you have a home of Hashem. You have a unity of Hashem between you two. And that's something so precious. And anything precious is going to be heavy to hold. The evil inclination works its hardest when there's a threat. It's like any enemy in a war. They're not going to fight against something that's no threat. If it's no threat, then they don't need to fight. So whenever you're being pushed, I always remind myself two things. Wow, the harder it is because the evil inclination knows that I'm up to something good. And number two is, okay, yeah, it's heavy, but it's also a bag of diamonds. And when we get past this, we're going to see those diamonds. We're going to reveal them together.